That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen.
Whoa!
Federal agents have shot 2 people in Portland, Oregon a short time ago. The agents who shot, we are told, are with U.S. Customs and Border Protection. What we know so far on this. Also in Minneapolis, growing protests and outrage tonight after the deadly ICE shooting of a mother of 3 there. 2 very different takes on what happened there, and the images, of course, are disturbing. The video shows 37-year-old Renée Good behind the wheel of her SUV, partially blocking that intersection. An agent trying to open her door. You see the vehicle reverse and then drive forward. A third agent firing those 3 shots, killing the driver, shooting her in the head.
On January 7th, 2026, a 37-year-old mother named Renée Nicole Good was shot and killed by a federal agent in broad daylight on a Minneapolis street. The entire incident was caught on video, and what that footage reveals has sparked one of the most heated debates about law enforcement power in recent history. But before we dive in, if you're new here, welcome to Crime Lab Report. We break down the cases that matter, the ones that raise questions we all need to be asking. So hit that like button, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you never miss an update. Trust me, you're going to want to stay informed on this one. Now, let's get into what actually happened that morning in Minneapolis. Renée Good wasn't supposed to die that day. She was a writer, a poet, someone who expressed herself through words. She had graduated from Old Dominion University back in 2020 with a degree in English. She wasn't just any writer, though. She was a mother of 3, including a 6-year-old child she was raising with her wife, Rebecca Brown Good, in Minneapolis. They had actually moved to Canada after the 2024 election, but eventually came back and settled in Minneapolis, trying to build a life together. Renée was originally from Colorado Springs, Colorado. People who knew her describe her as thoughtful, someone who cared about what was happening in her community. And that's exactly what she was doing on the morning of January 7th. She was observing. The city was in the middle of what federal officials were calling the largest immigration enforcement operation ever conducted. 2,000 ICE agents had been sent to the Minneapolis area. Think about that for a second. 2,000 agents in one city. The streets were filled with federal vehicles, agents in tactical gear, an atmosphere that residents described as terrifying. Renée wasn't breaking any law by watching what was happening. In America, you have the right to observe law enforcement activity in public spaces. Legal observers do this all the time at protests, during police operations, to ensure accountability. And that's what Renée was doing that morning, sitting in her Honda Pilot, watching the ICE operation unfold. For about 3 minutes, her vehicle was stopped sideways in the road. She wasn't moving, wasn't threatening anyone. She was just there. And then ICE agents approached her vehicle. Now here's where things get really important. So stay with me. Multiple eyewitnesses who saw what happened that morning all reported the same thing. The agents gave Renée conflicting orders. Imagine being in your car and one agent is yelling at you to drive away, to leave the area. But at the same time, another agent is shouting at you to get out of the car. What do you do in that moment? You're a citizen. You haven't committed a crime. And now you've got armed federal agents screaming contradictory commands at you. One of the agents tried to open her car door. He reached through her window. Another agent positioned himself near the front of her vehicle. Renée, probably terrified and confused, did what one of the agents told her to do. She started to leave. The video shows her briefly reversing, and then she moved forward, turning her steering wheel as she did. And that's when the shots rang out. 3 bullets fired into her car. The first shot was fired at exactly 9:37 and 13 seconds in the morning. Less than half a second later, a second shot, then a third. The entire sequence happened in a matter of moments. Now, multiple news organizations, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the BBC, analyzed the video footage frame by frame. And what they found is crucial to understanding this case. When those shots were fired, the agent who pulled the trigger was not in the path of Renée's vehicle. The New York Times analysis was clear on this point. The agent was not struck by the car. In fact, as the Honda Pilot began moving forward, the wheels turned to the right, away from where the agent was standing. So if the car was turning away from him, if he wasn't in its path, why did he fire? After the shots were fired, Renee's car continued down the street until it crashed into a parked car and a light pole. The agent who shot her didn't rush to help. Instead, he surveilled the car on foot for over a minute, then got into an icy vehicle and drove away. He left the scene before local police arrived, before emergency medical personnel could get there. And here's something that should make your blood run cold. Multiple bystanders tried to help Renee. One of them was a physician, but ICE agents prevented them from providing medical aid for approximately 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Think about what can happen in 15 minutes when someone has been shot multiple times. Renée Good died from multiple gunshot wounds to the head at Hennepin County Medical Center. The federal government's response was immediate and aggressive. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem claimed that Renee had been stalking and impeding ICE agents all day. She characterized the shooting as an act of domestic terrorism. Let that sink in. A 37-year-old mother and writer observing a federal operation in public was labeled a domestic terrorist after being shot and killed. Noem said the officers acted in self-defense, that Renee had weaponized her vehicle. President Trump himself defended the shooting, backing up the claim that it was self-defense. But Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey wasn't having it. At a news conference right after the shooting, he looked directly into the cameras and said the federal explanation was nonsense. He said he'd seen the video himself, and what he saw was an agent recklessly using power that resulted in someone dying. He told ICE to get out of Minneapolis, that the city didn't want them there. He said they claimed to be creating safety, but were doing exactly the opposite. When Frey faced criticism for his strong language, for dropping an F-bomb during his press conference, you know what he said? He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that he dropped an F-bomb but they killed somebody, and asked which one was more inflammatory. He said he would go with the killing somebody.
In Minneapolis, when a tragedy strikes, there's one word that summarizes what is most important, and that word is integrity. This is not the time to bend the rules. This is a time to follow the law. This is not a time to hide from the facts. This is a time to embrace them, making sure that we're pushing for transparency every step of the way. The fact that Pam Bondi's Department of Justice and this presidential administration has already come to a conclusion about those facts is deeply concerning. The facts that from the very beginning they're calling the victim a domestic terrorist, they're calling the actions of the agent involved as some form of defensive posture. We know that they've already determined much of the investigation, and even if they haven't, there is the appearance that there is some conclusion drawn from the very beginning. If not hide from the facts, why not embrace them? If it's not a problem to have additional people at the table that have a deep commitment to the process and transparency and have run these investigations before, then why not include them in the process? The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension at the state of Minnesota has consistently run these investigations before. They have done so without bias. They have done so with a great deal of expertise. This is not some radical, way out there group. This is a group that is formed by experts who understand how to investigate. Many of them have been police officers themselves. So our ask is really simple here. Our ask is to embrace the truth. Our ask is to include the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension in this process because we in Minneapolis want a fair investigation. Is it deeply concerning that this administration from the very get-go is drawing the conclusion that they may ultimately come to? Of course it is. And if you got nothing to hide from, then don't hide from it. Include local experts in the process. We got nothing to hide from here. All we want in Minneapolis is justice and the truth. And speaking of the truth, let me give you another one. I have heard countless people talk about Minneapolis, many of them who have never been here as some form of post-apocalyptic hellscape, as a place that is dangerous. Well, let me give you a statistic. 50% of the shootings that have happened thus far in Minneapolis this year have been ICE. In other words, we've only had 2 shootings. One of them has been ICE. We are a safe city. ICE is making it less so. We are a city of unity, but ICE is trying to divide us and tear us apart. For every one of the people that you see standing here behind me, they have more than 1,000 people behind them. They have people that are committed to their neighbors, committed to integrity, committed to justice, and committed to getting the truth. We will not back down from it.
Local officials said Renee was acting as a legal observer. Eyewitnesses who were there said she posed absolutely no threat at all and was simply attempting to leave when the agents told her to. These weren't people with an agenda. These were regular Minneapolis residents who happened to be on that street that morning and saw the whole thing unfold. Now let's talk about the policies that are supposed to govern these situations. ICE and DHS agents operate under specific use of force guidelines that were updated in 2023. Those policies are very clear. An agent can only fire into a moving vehicle for 2 reasons. First, if the driver or someone inside the vehicle has a deadly weapon. Or second, if the vehicle itself is a direct threat and there's no other reasonable defensive option, including simply moving out of the way. A retired ICE agent who analyzed the video raised serious questions about the tactics used. Why was an officer positioned in front of the vehicle in the first place? That's not standard procedure, because it creates the exact situation we saw play out. It puts the officer in a position where they might claim the vehicle is a threat, even when better positioning could have avoided the entire confrontation. The FBI is now leading the investigation into the shooting, but there's controversy there too. Minnesota's Bureau of Criminal Apprehension initially was going to participate in a joint investigation, but they withdrew after the U.S. Attorney's Office reversed course. Mayor Fry has been pushing for local experts to be included in the investigation, pointing out that the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension has run these types of investigations before, without bias and with expertise. The agent who fired the shots has been identified through court records as Jonathan Ross, though federal authorities haven't officially released his name. He claimed he suffered a hip injury during the incident. Mayor Fry sarcastically noted that the agent walked away with a hip injury he could have gotten from closing a refrigerator door. Thousands of people have taken to the streets in Minneapolis and other cities, holding vigils and protests for Renée Good. They're demanding answers. They're demanding accountability. Because at the end of the day, a United States citizen is dead, shot by federal agents while she was exercising her constitutional right to observe law enforcement activity in a public space. This case raises questions that go far beyond one shooting in Minneapolis. It's about power. It's about accountability. It's about what happens when federal agents operate in cities that don't want them there, conducting massive enforcement operations that local officials say make their communities less safe, not more. Renée Good left behind a wife and children. She left behind poetry and writing that expressed her view of the world. She left behind friends and neighbors who described her as someone who cared deeply about justice and community. And now she's gone because in a moment of confusion, when she tried to follow contradictory orders from federal agents, someone made the decision to pull a trigger 3 times. So here's what I want you to think about. What goes through someone's mind when they decide to fire into a vehicle that's turning away from them? How do we reconcile the video evidence showing the car moving away from the agent with claims of self-defense? And maybe most importantly, what does it say about our system when eyewitnesses, video analysis, and local officials all tell one story, but federal authorities tell a completely different one? When does observation become a crime punishable by death? When did we reach a point where a mother sitting in her car, watching federal agents operate in her city, could be shot and killed and then labeled a terrorist? These aren't rhetorical questions. These are questions that demand answers, that demand we pay attention and stay informed. The investigation is ongoing. The truth is still being uncovered. But what we know right now should concern every single person who believes in accountability, in justice, in the idea that law enforcement exists to protect citizens, not to terrorize them. What do you think happened that morning? Do you believe the federal government's version of events, or does the evidence point to something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this breakdown valuable, if you think more people need to know Renée Good's story, hit that share button. Subscribe to Crime Lab Report if you haven't already, because we're going to keep following this case as it develops. Justice for Renée Good means getting to the truth, no matter where it leads. I'll see you in the next one.